let me inform you about the reasons why it's so important for us to have black capital. Because we live in a society that's based off of race. We live in a racial society. It's not a post-racial society. It's not a society based off of class. It's not a society based off of sex, gender, religion, um, political status. It's not a society based off of anything. American society is based off of race. It always has been, and that's not going to change. Okay. What we can do and what we should do to change that is to change our position in American society. By changing that, we change the number one thing that fuels white supremacy, which is their economy. That's the only way to dismantle it, because that's where it gets its power from. Okay. We are the targets of white supremacy in general around the world. But the reason why white supremacy is able to oppress us so effectively is because we are poor. They can hate us all they want to, but they're able to oppress us because we don't have the capital and the resources to efficiently fight back. Now, we do fight back to the extent that we can, but we don't have the capability to fight back like we should because we've been economically deprived. Which is why it is important for Black people to own and control our power, wealth, and influence. It's very important for us to do so. The reason I decided to make this space is because a couple of days ago I made a space where I said that somebody brought up, because I was talking about racism, and somebody brought up, oh, you can't end racism without capitalism. And as far as incorrect as that was, I tried not to get off subject too much, and I said that I would host another space about capitalism, about Black capitalism, to educate people on the benefits of Black people owning capital, because too often we're told that capitalism is bad because of look how it's oppressing Black people. Excuse me. I got a lot of stuff going on. I'm just getting off, just kind of making it in the house. That's why this space is a little late. So give me a second, please. So they talk about the benefits of socialism and how everybody deserves this equal income, and how everybody deserves a minimum. Like, they're pushing this narrative of socialism as if that is a realistic thing, as if we can live in a post wealth society, like this is some type of Wakanda or something, where nobody is poor, there's nobody homeless, there's nobody who's rich. The rich get super taxed, so everybody can live affordably, and everybody just kind of goes their way, and nobody has an issue when it comes to race and being poor. That's never going to happen, and we have to be realistic about it, because we need we need to practice Black capitalism, and in order to do that, we need Black capital. Okay. And we can't stress the importance of Black people gaining and controlling our own capital if we have people out here, and unfortunately we have some Black people out here, saying that we should be avoiding capitalism and we should be pushing and striving harder for socialism. Okay, we will never succeed that way. Shout out to everybody in the chat so far, and shout out to everybody who's going to be listening to this recorded. Okay, that is the importance, because Black people have historically been restricted from gaining any capital. So we've been restricted from participating in capitalism in a capitalist society. This is American society is a capitalist society. Now, it's not 100% capitalist. There is some socialism in America, so to speak. It's not 100%. It's not even really in the top 10 of the most capitalist countries, to be honest. But it is a capitalist society, and we are not, as the foundationals, we have not been able to participate in that because we've been restricted and denied capital. Because the idea for Black people building the country when we were enslaved, we were never supposed to be free. That was never the agenda. And we damn sure we're never supposed to be equal. That was never the agenda either. And they know for a fact we in order to stop them from us, when I say them, I mean in order to stop us from becoming equal, they have to make us an uncompetitive class. And when we're uncompetitive, we will be at the mercy of the dominant society, which means that we will always be the necessarily the undesirables. If you guys know about the Indian class caste system, I was about to say class, the caste system, and I'm saying that in reference to my previous space. We will always be the lower class. We will always be at the bottom of the barrel. And if you economically destroy a group, it will be easier, and eventually you will be able to physically and literally wipe out that group. If you are economically killed, you will physically be killed sooner than later. And that's happened to other groups. There has been other societies and other groups that have completely been wiped out. Now, when we talk about we're in a war against white supremacy, a lot of people view wars in a very dramatic sense, like we view them in the movies where we have two standing armies with swords and shields, and they're charging at each other and they're fighting, and the last man wins, or the last few soldiers win the army, win the battle, and win the war. Or even in modern terms, we have militarized men with guns shooting from, tanks and aircrafts and things like that. But war is very economical too. Okay, a lot of societies that have been wiped out, they necessarily haven't been wiped out by people physically coming in and destroying us, but they've been wiped out by being choked to death economically, which is what's happening to Black America. Even though we are physically being murdered too, and that can't go understated, we're physically being murdered, but we're economically being destroyed every single day. And it's harder for us now. And I was just talking to somebody about this. Because me and him, we talk about all the Black things that Black people own here in Chicago, all the movie theaters, the grocery stores, just the Black stuff now. Now, fortunately, we do have some Black-owned businesses still. We still have some restaurants, some beauty supply stores, and shout out to all of them. But we don't have the Black-owned business diversity that we used to have. It's getting harder and harder for Black people to start their business, create business, and it's getting harder for Black people when they do get a chance to create their business to maintain their business. Most Black business, well, first, is difficult to maintain a business in general, and especially when you're looking at the racial aspect of America. Most Black businesses do not survive more than a few years. Within a few years, most Black businesses, if they take off the ground, if they leave the idea stage and actually become a legit business, most Black businesses do not survive more than a few years. A lot of Black businesses struggle their entire, and it's understandable to struggle in the beginning because you don't have the notoriety or the clout necessarily to get a returning customer base, which all businesses require. And that's because of our lack of a Black agenda and our lack of being on code. But most Black businesses, like I said, do not survive more than a few years. And it gets harder and harder as the generations go by for us to start Black business. Black wealth is constantly going down. I believe, and there was one article a few years saying that Black wealth will, the Black median wealth will reach a level of zero within, I think in 2050. And that was prior to the pandemic. And as we all know, or in case you didn't know, the COVID-19 pandemic affected and hurt Black people far worse than it hurt any other racial group. Black people were the worst affected by this. As hard as it is to start a business, majority, not necessarily going to say majority, but a large amount of the Black businesses fell under the COVID pandemic, and they're not going to come back. And Black people cannot afford that. Okay. If anybody would like to say anything, you can feel free to request to speak. As I'm waiting, let me see. I'm waiting on a few people who would want to say anything. If you guys can share the space as well too. I've seen some of you guys have done so already. But if you guys can share the space too so we can have as many people in here as possible, I would appreciate that as well. But now, the black people who are on code, the black people who are black first, we understand the importance of power, wealth, and influence, and we understand the importance of owning and controlling our land and resource. We understand that we're in a very dire situation in this race war that we are against white supremacy in. We understand that. But unfortunately, and the reason why I make this space is because unfortunately, we have a number of black people who push against black capitalism and say, oh, well, capitalism is only going to benefit the wealthy. And what we need to do is we need to start taxing the wealthy. And then if we tax the wealthy a lot, and they give that money to the government is going to disperse that money, is going to distribute that money amongst the people and amongst different programs and things of the sort. And that's going to give people the equity that they need. So the lower, so there's pretty much not going to be a lower class. Everybody's going to pretty much have a mid class. There's only going to be like a mid class. What do they call that? Um 1%. The median. I don't know exact. Man, it's slipping my tongue. It's kind of like the mid class of society, the medium class of society, and there's going to be the high class. And by taxing the high class, we're going to achieve that. Okay. Let me tell you why that is not a smart idea. It's not a smart idea because in societies, and you can look at Cuba because people bring up Cuba a lot. People brought up Cuba when I was in some spaces a couple of days ago talking about black Cubans and how um, Cubans have socialism and they're ran by socialism. And I put up some scans about, now this is in Miami, but these are black people who came from Cuba. Black people in Cuba, and even Dr. Claude Anderson in the clip I have on the Jumbotron, Dr. Claude Anderson testified to this. Um, Black people in Cuba are not living well. Black people in Cuba are living in a very deprived state. Their conditions are very bad. They don't have wealth at all. They don't really own and control anything. They're living day by day by the same. That the issue with this is the fact that the few businesses that certain people do own, they own that. You have to be like a high tier level in Cuba, which is pretty much a white Cuban or one of their very high tier Cubans in order to own any business. Now, in America, since we do have a capitalist society, despite the fact that that's not fair, because ultimately all capitalism, socialism, any type of economic agenda that's ran by white supremacy is ultimately going to be for the design of the dominant society, is going to be for the benefit of the dominant society, which is why we have to take control of these things. The benefit that we do have in America is anybody can start a business. You can start any business you want to. Anybody can. Now, we have an issue with that when it comes to black people because you can start a business, but you're of course you have to have money to make money. You know the term, it takes money to make money. So you are going to need some sort of capital. You're going to need some sort of money to get your business off the ground. You're going to need the resources. You're going to need the capital to do that. You're going to need the time to do that. So you're going to need, you can't be working 2 full-time jobs and do a service business because you're not going to have time to dedicate that, or a product business. You're not going to have time to oversee that or make the products or deliver the products or what have you. So that's the issue black people have a lot of times when it comes to starting their business. We don't necessarily have the resource and capital to do so. And then when you do so, you have to work and earn that. And since so many black people are on fixed incomes and our time is limited to dedicate to doing those things, we don't have time to really start the business like we want to. But we do get a chance, like I was saying, you do have the opportunity to start a business. In socialist society, you don't really have a lot of private owned businesses. And the thing is that America, people say socialism as if the government isn't racist, as if the government is, if they do get taxed, if they do tax the rich, the government is going to evenly distribute their resources and programs and benefits amongst everybody to create equity. The government isn't going to do that. If we did live in a socialist society, you won't see everybody equally benefiting off of socialism either. Socialism is not this one stop fix all thing. It's not in Cuba and it wouldn't be in America. Okay. So that's why it is important for us to realize that socialism isn't going to work here. We have some now later on in the space, because I like for these spaces to be productive. Later on in the space, I have some ideas that I think, that I am going to share that I believe, based off of my research, is going to help Black people gain and control some capital and maintain that capital and start an economic base that Black people need desperately. And I would like to hear some of your ideas too. But you requested to speak. Your name is back, Bodie. I hope I'm not butchering your name.
Bodhi, yeah.
Bodie. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bold statement. I'm not against black entrepreneurship or black people having businesses. I just don't believe that there is a future for prosperity that goes with this sort of laissez-faire capitalism that we see from Republicans and Democrats in the United States who don't want to challenge the levers of capital, and therefore can never really address the history of systematic and systemic racism that black people have endured, which created the wealth gap. I do not believe that there is a solution within capital to the issue that black people face today, which is that 10-to-1 wealth gap between white Americans and black Americans.
Okay. Okay, that's a good point. Now, when people say that, they do make a good point, because a lot of the people who try to argue and try to promote capitalism, they are the right wing Republicans, and those right wing Republicans, we all know they're notorious for being biased towards the dominant society, the white dominant society, and against Black people. And there is, and the term is slipping my mind again. I think this there is there's flaws in American capitalism. Okay, don't get me wrong, there is flaws in American capitalism. What I'm saying, and the thing is that I'm saying Black capitalism, because we have to understand, ultimately American capitalism isn't necessarily even fully capitalism, because it's not like American, because what they say is capitalism is based off of you coming here. This is supposed to be a free market with equal opportunity to start and form your business. And then once you get your business, you have to compete with other businesses to succeed. But what happens is now is through pretty much affirmative action, because the first affirmative action was given to the dominant society through the Constitution, where they were giving free land and resources to white people. When they gave free land and resources to white people, you can damn near argue that's socialism. And then when they gave those land and resources to white people, and then white people started their own business and corporations and industries based off of Black labor and wealth, they froze it in the dominant society. So you don't even really have access to their capital like that. And a lot of white owned businesses and white owned corporations, I should say, are frozen within the society, and they have a monopoly on it. And they got that not necessarily because they worked for it and they earned it. A lot of white people will say, oh, well, my grandpa came over here. He had nothing when he came over here. And they do all this talking, but they won't mention the Homestead Act. They won't mention the Homestead Act, where they were giving free land and resources and education so they can get and control capital. So you do make a good point with the way the dominant society talks about capitalism. I'm not talking about capitalism in that form. This space was pretty much to promote the benefit of Black people gaining and controlling capitalism the way it should be, because capitalism isn't isn't, even in America, capitalism isn't the way it's supposed to be. Capitalism is a race-based thing because it's all ran by white supremacy.
Yeah, even with the 1867 Homestead Act, like what was it, HR 115? I forget exactly what it was. It was originally intended to go to the descendants of slaves. And then they let white Southerners take it, and that's who benefited the most from that program. I mean, there was other Homestead Acts before that that said, you know, we have this manifest destiny, we've seized this land from natives, go ahead and take it. And that kind of failure to have a real reconstruction is part of the gap between white and black people, but it's also been maintained by like Jim Crow, black codes, redlining, not allowing people to benefit from things like the GI Bill. I mean, there's been so many policies to sort of keep black people as the underclass in America. Um, that there's no one thing that you can just point to and be like, oh yeah, this is the start of it, because they've never given black people a chance to acquire wealth. And so now that we've passed civil rights acts, now that we have the 14th Amendment and Equal Protections Clause, now America can be race blind, or has to be race blind. And now all of the problems that we face cannot be solved on a racial basis, even though they were created on a racial basis. I think the issue is that a lot of Black Americans actually support people or politicians who practice that ideology, including the Congressional Black Caucus, who don't want to deal with Black issues specifically, but want to deal with minorities or POC or whatever, because it's untenable to talk about how America has treated the descendants of slaves.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Speaking of the Congressional Black Caucus, who has done nothing at all for any the benefit of any black person, they're all out for um, immigrants, Hispanics, everybody who isn't black. They support more. They just have the name black and they have black-looking identities. They're black-looking people, but they don't work in the interest of black people, even though that's what they were designed to do. They don't work in the interest of black people. Um, for instance, if we look at because there's other cause. If we look at the Hispanic caucus that actually does advocate for their own people, the Hispanic caucus who advocates for the Hispanics coming over here, the Hispanics come over here and they try to gain capital. There's Hispanics coming over here and they practice group economics, where they all pretty much is. And people say this is like a stereotype or whatnot, but this is the real deal. They all come over here, they got their damn near their whole family. There's like 10 to 18 people living in one household. They go to work. A lot of them, they try to work within the family. So if they have a restaurant, a taco shop, a taco truck, or whatever, they all try to work within that same family business. They all bring the money back to the same house. And then they keep that money in their community, which means they go to other Hispanic owned businesses and things like that. The Asians do that as well too. And then they use that resource because of the group resources. They built their economy and they gain more capital and they spread it to this place and this place and this place. Black people, unfortunately, have been taught not to do that. Black people have been taught to work into Black people haven't been taught the importance of owning and controlling our own wealth and influence. We've been taught that that's a bad thing to do. We've been taught that pretty much a bad thing to have ownership of anything and to have money and wealth. And we've been stripped from that. We've been deprived from a lot of opportunities, which is why our situation is as bad as it is now. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what your take is on like white leftists. One thing they always push, and they push this to black people over the idea of racial consciousness, is that, well, you need to have class consciousness. And on that note, I feel like a lot of black Americans do not have racial consciousness, at least when it comes to the ballot box, at least when it comes to the ways that we intervene in politics. Because you look at the rise of Joe Biden, which really isn't a rise, but the way that he was able to become the Democratic nominee was partially, and a lot of parts, right, due to the black community, specifically the black community in South Carolina, and how people like James Clyburn circled the wagons for him, right? How people like James Clyburn in 2008, and I'm not saying Barack Obama was great for black people, but out of
Mhm.
Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, James Clyburn, right, refused to endorse Barack Obama in 2008 for the Democratic establishment. And so a lot of our politicians and a lot of the older folk who are voting in our community, because let's be real, only 9% of Americans are voting in primaries, right? Of that 9%, the majority is going to be older folk. And so while black people have a lot of power in the Democratic Party, the people showing up to vote aren't really voting for black interests. Joe Biden, how is he ever in black interests? Why is this fervor to support people like Joe Biden, to support people like Hillary Clinton, to support people like Bill Clinton for older black voters in our Democratic primaries? What is it about them that our community finds credible or helpful for the black community?
That's you make a good point. You make a good point, and I've argued that many times. A lot of people, a lot of black people who I've argued with, um, made the dumb argument that Joe Biden, they don't like Joe Biden, but they believe that Joe Biden was somehow quote unquote the lesser of two evils when it came to Donald Trump, and now they're nowhere to be found because there is no. Let's just be honest. There is no lesser of two evils. Evil is evil, and to be, if you want to compare apples to apples, Joe Biden has done far worse than Trump historically. Now, Tate, you said you requested to speak. You can
Ye-
unmute yourself.
yes. This is I think this is one of the better spaces that I've seen on Twitter. Addressing this topic. So, I just hearing is your name Black Bodai, talking about the white leftists. Um, Whenever there's a conversation with them involving race, it always gets to the class reductionist rhetoric. Like if you follow someone like Kyle Kalinske or Crystal Ball or one of those people, it becomes, you know, the elites and the 1%. They're screwing all of us. It's not a race thing, you know. So that's kind of my take on the white leftists. As far as this conversation goes, I would say let's. I guess you can't really get around the white leftists because a lot of black people listen to what they have to say. But I think we need to get those people out of the room at some point, so that we can really focus on a black agenda without all the modern Democratic Party nonsense, wokeness, and things like that. Um, in terms of black capitalism, I think it's good, if it's done like you said in the truest sense of capitalism, not this crony capitalism that we have in America, where if big business is losing too much money, then it becomes socialism. Um, you know, I believe strongly in capitalism, and I talk to a lot of black people in business, and like you said, the biggest thing is lack of capital. Because anyone can start an LLC for like $250, but in order to have a business that's sustainable and generates revenue, you have to structure your business the right way. You have to have customers. You have to have, marketing budgets and things like that. I see a lot of black people, they 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 don't necessarily want to do what it takes to build a sustainable business. They just like the idea of a business. So I'm just going to pause on that point.
Okay, you make a good point. You make a good point. Let me touch on the white leftists. First off, I'm not for the left or the right, but if you ask me which one bothers me the most, it's definitely the right leftist. Um, First off, rest in peace to our black legend icon Malcolm X. He passed away um 57 years ago yesterday. He passed away 57 years ago yesterday. I remember when I think he was in he gave us, it wasn't a speech where he said this, it was like a online conversation or an interview where he was talking about the right Republican or conservatives are like wolves and black people are like sheep. Black people are like sheep and white conservatives are like wolves, and they're there to attack and eat the sheep. But the what do you say? The white liber
The
liber
liberal, the liberal.
liberals, thank you. The white liberals are like the foxes. Now the foxes eat sheep too, or I think he said lambs or sheep. I'm not sure exactly if he said lambs or sheep, but the principle goes either one, the wolf and the sheep have the desire to eat that animal. I'm just say sheep because I think that's what it was. um they have the desire to eat that animal, but the fox has a much more intimidating um persona to it. You can a fox is much bigger, is much more aggressive. It looks meaner, and it doesn't hide its intentions. When you see a a wolf coming, you know for a fact the wolf is coming to eat the sheep or to eat the lamb. But a fox is smaller. A fox doesn't give the same um intimidation factor that a wolf does. So the fox is able to sneak in and the fox doesn't seem as intimidating, so the sheep are not alarmed. But the sheep wind up succeeding more often than the fox do when it comes to eating the I'm sorry. The fox winds up succeeding more often than the wolf does when it comes to eating the sheep or the lamb. So when white conservatives, I mean not white conservatives, when white liberals, when the left, and I don't really play the leftist rightist thing, but let's be honest, when we talk about race, they have a tendency to try to pivot the conversation away from race. They always do because this is white supremacy and this is their code. They try to pivot away from the racial aspect and they say it's class. Because once we say it's class, we've left the conversation of it being about race. We've made the entire conversation about this being about rich versus poor, and anybody can be rich and poor. You have rich white people, you have poor white people, you have rich black people, so speaking, you have poor black people. So when they say it's not about race or class is a bigger issue than racism, because they don't necessarily say racism is over with. They don't say it's not a thing, but they say class is a bigger issue than racism. And unfortunately, because too many black people um listen to the white leftists or the white liberals, we fall into that trap of believing what the wolf says or the fox says, and believing that this the issue that we're facing now is more classism than it is racism. To be honest, classism is not the issue of black people at all. That's a white on white issue, but it's not the issue of black people at all, because our issue is completely racial. You have some of the more well-to-do black people who get attacked and demonized by the lower class white people. You can have lower class, pretty much trailer park trash white people attack and dismantle upper class black people. The same struggles that wealthier black people go through, you don't even have the lower class white people go through that. There's several cases. I believe I was reading one article of this black doctor who went into a bank, and I guess she was trying to deposit a check and had the police called on her. And this is one of many cases. Had the police called on her because they saw she was black and they believed her check was too big and they thought it was a fake check. You don't have white people having the police called on them um, for having a fake check unless the check is actually fake. You can't find a story of a white doctor going into a bank and people assuming that the check is fake. The only reason that anybody assumed that the check is fake with that black doctor is because she was black. So racism is always a bigger presence, it's always a bigger factor than classism is. Anywhere you go, it's a bigger factor than classism is. You have rich and poor black people being terrorized and murdered by the police still under these things. Classism is not nearly as big of an issue as racism is. Racism is our number one concern. Classism is their concern because besides class, besides money, that's the only barrier they have from being in that like 1% or that upper echelon class in society. That's the only barrier that they have. We have the barrier of race before anything. Even the black wealth, I believe was is it Chris Rock had a stand up where he was talking about he's a famous comedian and he makes a lot of money and he lives in like $1 million home and his neighbors are pretty much regular white citizens. His neighbors are white dentists and white lawyers and doctors, and he's on the top of the charts as far as black people are concerned. So the best of the best black people um have to live among the above average white people. Even the best of the best black people aren't living with the best of the best white people. There's a racial barrier everywhere you go. So racism is a bigger thing than classism. The thing is that the white liberals lie about that and they try to deceive black people into thinking that classism is a more pertinent issue than racism, is because once we start talking about classism and leave the racism thing alone, then that includes everybody. And if we get rid of classism, that will ultimately benefit the white liberals more than it will benefit everybody else. So I'm glad you two brought that up.
I would say though that there's a difference between like white liberals and the way they try to weaponize class and race versus leftists, right? Socialists, communists, I don't know, Bernie supporters. Um, it's that you'll see white Democrats or liberals, they will use and speak about race, right? But
Hmm.
they will weaponize it, right? So they'll use identity politics and say like, "Oh, race is the only thing that matters. Let's not talk about class or anything else." Kamala Harris, we should support Kamala Harris, but we shouldn't talk about how Kamala Harris, locked up black mothers in California. One of them suffering from lupus because their kids were absent from school, right? We won't talk about how Kamala Harris decided that she needed the labor of black men to fight fires, right? Prison labor for private corporations, and so that's why they had to stay longer, right? Even though that they were exonerated with evidence, they have to stay longer because that's a source of labor, right? That was an argument from her office when she was the prosecutor in California. So they'll try to use like race to just blanketly say this black person, this token, now represents black people. Do not talk about their policies. Don't talk about how their policies would benefit black people or anyone at all because they are black, and they will ignore sort of the dollar sign behind that. Because when black people are talking about oppression, they don't just mean like we, at least I don't just mean um a police officer who's going to beat the shit out of me or pull me over. We also mean like, yeah, like the reason why these people have schools that are crappy is because the way that we fund schools through like housing taxes and like redlining has led us to live in these ghettos, right? And those kids in those communities have lesser resources to actually do something with their lives. And so they are at a higher risk for like joining gangs. And then once they get into the system, every single at every single level, there's incentives to keep them within the system. Mm-hmm. There's incentives to like not hire a black person even over like a white felon when they have a degree. And we know that black kids who have parents who are wealthy, black men specifically, they're not going to do as well as like, for example, a black man with two parents in the household whose family makes $140,000. That's in the top 90 percentile. He's going to make as much as a white kid growing up with one mother, with a single mother, right? Making $60,000 a year. And so obviously race has more of an impact than class in these situations. But
Hello. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear
I
you
was
now.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
going to say that Democrats just want to use tokens as a stand-in for actual policy. So like Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, I don't know, like they'll just throw out a black person and say, well, now these policies clearly benefit black people because representation is what black people are fighting for, not actual policy changes. We just want to be represented in a white supremacist system.
Yeah. That, and we ask for representation. And this is something I argue too, because I see people getting excited when they have like a black character in a cartoon or in a movie, or they get upset. But the thing is that representation doesn't matter unless we own it. We shouldn't be fighting for representation. We should be fighting to own things so we can represent ourselves. We shouldn't even want other people to represent us or to be forcing other represent, like I don't like, for instance, I've always kind of had a thing where I grew up with comic books and cartoons and things like that. And now there's talks into making white comic book characters black, and people were like, "Oh, well, that's progressive." Now, to an extent, they're fake, so it doesn't really matter. None of these characters are real, and I do like the fact that you have some white supremacists who get triggered by these fictional characters. But the thing is that it doesn't. I don't give them any props. There are no kudos in that for me, because I know for a fact I don't want to be second place too. I don't want a handout. I don't want some fake disingenuous representation. Okay, I would rather have a black owned comic book strip, or a black owned, I guess, comic book genre, where black people, that, and that's just the thing. When we talk about representation, we want to see ourselves, because too many black people have this thing where we feel as if representations is going to give us more integration. We want to be like, well, if they see us in this place, maybe they'll understand. I remember when Obama was elected, and when Obama was in his term, people were talking about, okay, well, a black man is finally in the highest place in America. A black man is the most powerful man in the world. And okay, as great as that is, that has done nothing for black people. Black people were better off prior to Obama, because of the 2008 financial crash, the housing crisis, right? And black people lost a lot of resources, lost a lot of wealth, and then Obama came and bailed the banks out instead of the people. And those people who lost their homes, they just had to go about their lives if they could. Obama didn't help any black person out, but black people were still giving him credit. Now, at the time, I was young; I couldn't even vote for Obama if I didn't support him. But black people gave him credit merely for the fact that he was black, and black people primarily, almost in 100% um proportions, voted for Obama both times. And then when Kamala Harris ran, when she was running, everybody was all like, "Oh, well, that's going to be the first black woman president, or the first black woman vice president, and we need black women." And I was seeing T-shirts sold in stores and online talking about, "My vice president looks like me." But what does that matter if your vice president looks like you? What does that matter if your president looks like you? None of those things matter, because they're not looking out for you. To be honest, I would rather, and this is just be honest, I'd rather have a non-black president, or a non-black governor, or a non-black politician in office, if that's going to benefit black people more, than seeing a black person on a poster saying that this is the president, this is the governor, this is whoever. Because black people have a bad history of having mayors, governors, um, even presidents being in political office, people in Congress. We were just talking about the what black congressional
CDC.
black Congress. Yeah, we was just talking about them, and they're in high political influence, and they have done nothing at all for the benefit of black people. So we're giving all this credit to representation, as if representation matters. To be honest, I think representation is very overrated if we don't control it. I can live without if we don't control it. And I do think representation does matter, but representation matters when we're the ones who are representing each other. Representation shouldn't we shouldn't be giving any credit, or shouldn't be um having our hearts go pitter pat when we're handpicked to be represented by the dominant society. So I
Totally
agree with
agree.
that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Democrats treated Barack Obama as reparations. As they, I mean, that's what it seems like to me.
Let me see. Now somebody say I see nothing allowing. If anybody wants to say something, you can feel free to request, or you can feel free to DM me, and I can speak on whatever thing you want to say. But the thing is that the Democrats and even the Republicans, none of them want black ownership. None of them promote black ownership. Okay. Now, when the Republicans, and this is the thing that black people need to understand, all of them want the benefit of the dominant white society. All of them want what's best for white people. So when they talk about we need to support small businesses can mean anybody's business. And they're talking about white businesses, because you don't ever see these same Republicans, these same conservatives who are talking about supporting small businesses. You don't see them supporting small black businesses. You don't see supporting or acknowledging them at all. Anytime there's a sign saying black owned business, they go out of their way to avoid patriotizing that business whatsoever. Now, when it comes to um, the left, or the leftists, or what have you, on the other side of the political spectrum, they're talking as if business is not important. And if business, because you can't own wealth by employment, they're talking about let's raise the minimum wage, and let's get socialism so everybody can be equal. But the thing is that even with socialism in this country, because of um the years, all the generations and years and centuries that we've been held back, even if everything was equal tomorrow, the dominant society will have a leg up over black people even then. If we don't own and control anything, then we don't have wealth and influence, and they know that. That's why you see the European Jews, nobody can say anything about them. They can cancel people just like that for even speaking out of term on them, like, for instance, Nick Cannon and Whoopi Goldberg, because they know the power of owning and controlling things. So they have incredible influence in the media. So if you say anything against something that they dislike, if you say anything they dislike, they either can cancel you directly themselves, or they know somebody and they have influence so you can get canceled. Black people can't do that, because you can't have resources. You can't have influence. You can't influence anybody if you don't have you can't influence anybody if you don't have the resources behind it. Nobody's going to take you serious. And the white liberals deceptively know that. And the thing is that they push socialism, and a lot of people promote socialism ultimately because they don't want to compete. And too many black people don't want to compete in a capitalist society. So we're trying to change the fact that we're in a capitalist society by saying, let's get rid of competition altogether and make everything fair, so I can work at McDonald's and I can still afford my house, my 2-story bedroom house, by working at McDonald's part-time. Yeah, somebody just requested to speak. Um, what's your name? Can I just call you non-desk? Oh, nondescript. Okay, that's your name. Nondescript. You requested to speak.
Oh, what's up, brother?
How's it going? How you
All
doing?
right. It's not so much that I disagree with you, and I don't know if you allow disagreements, but
No, yeah.
but I wanted to just jump in and say the opposite of capitalism is not socialism. Socialism and capitalism, they exist in pretty much every other free society except for America. And the people who are pushing for socialism is not so much because they're lazy and don't want to compete, but so much because they realize that capitalism, by its very nature, is unfair. Somebody's going to get screwed, right? So what they were trying to push for is more socialism, so that there's a safety net, a floor which people can't fall below. And I want to say you're being a bit unfair when you say people want to work at McDonald's part-time and on a 2-story house. That's not been the experience of what I've seen in my short 49 years of life. That's all I want to say. Thanks.
Oh, okay. And and so other people can know, if you disagree with anything I've said, or if you disagree with the concept of this space, you can feel free to request to speak, and then excuse me, and voice your disagreement. Okay, so this isn't going to be me saying if you don't agree you have to get out of here, or anything like that. But the thing is, I'm saying in the black community, we're constantly being told that we need socialism, socialism. We have people talking about socialism. We have people talking about raising the minimum wage. Now, I do believe, and I said in the space, I do believe that there is a problem with the way capitalism is practiced in American society today. Um, because capitalism is based off of race. Every system is based off of race, if we're going to be honest. So capitalism is based off of race, and there should be more, um I guess, safety nets. I'm not necessarily saying anything is wrong with adding safety nets for the people who aren't able to go there. For the people who aren't able to compete to the same degree, I don't necessarily feel like, okay, if you can't be a wealthy business owner, then you deserve to be homeless. There should be, to an extent, a safety net. But the thing is that when you say, okay, when the concept, because I've had many conversations with this too, and maybe we have different experiences, but the I've argued with people who say we should have socialism, so that way if people don't want to compete, people don't want to start their business or invest in things like that, people can work at a job, or you should work at a job that pays you enough money so you can live or whatever, comfortably. You should work for it, and ideally, oh, that is nice. It is nice for everybody. Shouldn't have to be a billionaire to live comfortably. I do agree with that. But the thing is that a lot of people push that thing because they know for a fact that they're not competitive, and especially the black race, um have been historically uncompetitive. And instead of promoting black people gaining the capital so we can be competitive, too many black people, and from my experience, I'm just gonna speak anecdotally. From my experience, too many black people have tried to get rid of the fact that competition is necessary. Too many black people talk as if, okay, because capitalism is racialized in America, we should just completely get rid of capitalism and completely get rid of competition in general. In this space, and for the people who are just coming in, this space is pretty much to promote black capitalism, which is by extension promoting black people owning capital, owning and controlling our own capital. Because a lot of times too, and something else that I get into it about with people talk about um, safety nets, and I do believe that is a good thing. People talk about what is it, free education, and free healthcare. Okay, which, if you ask me about that, I don't disagree. I do not disagree with free healthcare or cheaper healthcare or editing the healthcare system that we have today. Okay, we have a lot of sick people. We have a lot of people who need healthcare that they really can't afford. They're paying an arm and a leg. They don't want to go to the hospital because they know they couldn't afford the bill, or they know whatever insurance that they get from their job wouldn't be able to cover whatever hospital bill or anything they needed from the hospital. But the thing is that even if we talk about free healthcare, when we go to the doctors and the doctor is a white supremacist, and the doctor racially terrorizes black people, you have a system in the hospital, in the American medical system, where black women are more likely to die giving birth when they have a white doctor. I forgot the name of the term for a doctor that delivers babies. If you guys know that, can you let me know that real quick? It's a term for a doctor that delivers babies. They're specialized in a certain thing. They have a specific name.
OBGYN? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what
Well,
it is. That they have a
okay,
higher I guess, mortality, or I
yeah,
forget the term, right? But well, yeah, that's
no,
very
I
true.
was, yeah, they have a higher more, and the baby too, not just the black women, the baby as well. If the doctor is a white doctor, they have more, they're more likely to have to die than it would be in a black than a black doctor. And that's just the case when it comes to babies in general. You have a lot of other cases where in education too, we want free education, but a lot of the teachers are white supremacists. You have cases after cases we're seeing all over the internet of teachers literally fighting their students, or black students getting beaten up by the class and nobody wants to say anything. Teachers calling the black student the N-word. Right now they're pretty much trying to erase black history with the whole fear of quote unquote critical race theory. So what I'm saying is black people need to own and control these things. We need to own and control our own hospitals. We need to own and control our own um, schools. We need to own and control everything so we can get away from that. Because even if um, these things do become free or more affordable, we'll still have that racial barrier. We can't get rid of that unless we own and control our own things. And I'm not saying that you were saying anything against that, but that's what the space is trying to promote.
Yeah, I mean, with these socialists, these people that say black people should go into socialism, I just wonder, like, how do they think? And they also share some of these goals of having independent schools and you know industries and things. But I'm like, how are you going to finance it? You can't finance this movement on donations only. It's like Booker T. Washington. He was a proponent of do for self, which a lot of people don't like. But reading his book, he raised a lot of money and did things so that he could create Tuskegee. So we have to get back into that mindset, at least in part.
Booker T was the man. He gets a bad rap.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Absolutely. A lot of people don't know Garvey was inspired by him. So, you know,
And the
He
thing is
never met.
that
Oh, go
people
ahead.
criticize do for self because do for self too many people, and I don't, and Booker T wasn't coming at it from like this angle. Even though doing for self was a good thing, people come, oh well, do for self, are you trying to say that black people are, because a lot of people say, well, do for self is kind of like an extension of the pull yourselves up by your bootstraps thing, which is pretty much saying
Yeah,
if you're poor it's your own fault. But that's
yeah.
not the angle he was coming at it with, so a lot of people get that confused.
but if you stay poor, it's your own fault. That's what I would say. You know,
Whoa.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing. Here's the thing. When black people try to give like an excuse for being poor, or black people try to say things about being poor, we have to understand. We have to come in the middle, because there is a middle ground. To an extent, we can get out of the hood. We can get out of poverty. We can, and many black people have done so already. However, there's racial obstacles and racial barriers that are set in place for us not to succeed. We've been dealt a bad hand just because we're black. So you have the we can succeed, and that's what the conservatives say. Well, if you just study harder, if you just pull yourselves up by your bootstraps and don't be lazy and don't commit crimes, then you'll succeed. And they try to say that and ignore the racial aspect of all the barriers and obstacles that we go through. And then you have on the other side, you have people who act as if the racial barriers and obstacles are completely shackling black people into poverty and they can never escape. But there is a middle ground. Just because there's obstacles don't mean that those obstacles can't be overcome. We have to acknowledge the fact that there are obstacles, because if you don't acknowledge the fact that there are obstacles and barriers, then you can't get rid of those obstacles and barriers. If you have hurdles in your way, and you act like there's no hurdles, you're just gonna run through them. You need to acknowledge the fact that, hey, I'm running in this race with everybody else, but I'm the only person who has hurdles I have to jump through. I have sand I have to run in. I have all of these tricks and traps that I have to avoid. No other race of people have this, especially our white counterparts. We have to deal with that. But does that mean that we should, when the gunshot goes off and everybody starts running, we sit on the floor and we pout because we see all the obstacles ahead of us? No. We can overcome these obstacles, but we have to acknowledge too there has to be a balance of motivation to overcome the obstacles with a recognition that there are obstacles, and a motivation to get rid of the obstacles. So when the next generation comes up to run the race, they won't have the same racial barriers and obstacles that we've had.
Got a question for you.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
If you're running a race and the obstacles are there, the hurdles. I love your analogy, but the hurdles are there. You didn't put them there. They were there when you were born, and they're gonna be there. Of course, you got to still run the race, but you run the race knowing that you're gonna lose, right? And
Um,
if one
okay.
guy, if he becomes the Michael Jordan of hurdle running, and he actually wins the race, that's not for us to turn around and look at the rest of us and say, "See, he did it," because we're in a position where we're not allowed to be your average Joe. I was just talking to somebody at work about this yesterday. A white guy can be as average as you could imagine. George Bush was the fucking president. Give me a break, right? I'm way
Mm-hmm.
smarter than George Bush. There's no way I'd ever be the president. And I think that when we start doing, when we, I don't want you to think I'm arguing with you. When we
No, no,
start
no. I
talking this,
agree. Yeah, I feel you.
when we start talking this do for self and just work hard and all that, come on, man. Let's be real. Black people are the hardest working people in the history of this world.
I
You
agree.
don't know a lot of black people who ain't working hard. I mean, you look at the niggas with two, oops, pardon me, my bad. I'm getting too comfortable. You're looking at people with two, three jobs, right? They leave one job and go to the next, and then they got to hustle on the side. So it's not a matter of work ethic. They're doing it. It's a matter of spinning your wheels in place in a system that's designed to keep you're running your ass off, but you're on a treadmill.
Yeah, yeah. That's true. That's true. I'm glad you bring because there is a delicate balance with that. And I'm very glad you brought that up because you have they'll look at like the super soldier athletes who miraculously break the norm and they'll win the race in first place, and then they'll look at that and say, okay, well, if that one off can do it, then the rest of you do not have an excuse not to do it. And then they'll look at that and that's used against us to say, okay, well, there's no racial barrier, there's no racial obstacles, because if there was, he wouldn't have run that race, or Michael Jordan wouldn't be the best. So if Michael Jordan's the best, the rest of you all don't have an excuse not to do that. And you're very right, black people are the hardest working people. Black people are the hot. There's no group of people in the world in history who has worked harder than black people have. We are the hardest working people, and most of the black people I know today are very hard working people, constantly working on starting their business, growing their careers, getting their education, and all that. I think though that we have to understand because it can be done if we look at the past, if we look at the past when black people were in segregation and black people were forced to do business and forced to team up and partner with other black people because you had no choice to do it with anybody else. You literally couldn't go into a white owned business. If you did, they were liable to hang you for doing that. And when black people were forced to work together, black people had more wealth back then, and now black people are running out of wealth because black people collectively don't practice group economics. So my concept, and I do fully agree with what you're saying, my concept is the fact that we can work hard. And the thing is that it doesn't matter how hard you work, you're never going to succeed. It's about the group. Race is a group. Racism is a group sport. It's a group competition. So you need to work with the group. Michael Jordan it can be rich today, and then let an allegation comes up, and watch him start paying all these settlements or whatnot. Watch Michael Jordan be rich today and poor tomorrow. Watch all these other
But
white celebrities be rich today and
that's
poor tomorrow. It's about the group. Now, Tate, you said you want to say something?
yeah. I was just saying that's basically what happened to Bill Cosby. He had $500 million at one point, I think, and then all of these allegations started coming out, and he had to start paying all these settlements and all this blackmail, and now he's probably worth less than $1 million because of all the money he had to pay out. And another thing that I was thinking, when you guys are making your points, was that we can't build wealth because we have to start over every generation. Like, I don't know how many times I see people that are black that grew up in middle class, upper middle class households, their children end up living in the projects or in low income housing. So it's like you can never accumulate generation to generation.
Mm.
So, and you damn sure can't build wealth by working a job. You have to have a business, you have to have investments, you know, because otherwise you're just going to spend your money on liabilities and junk, So,
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. Because if you're starting from, because wealth builds more wealth. Nothing is really stagnant. Let's be honest. Um, wealthy people can pass their wealth down, and they can multiply that and create more wealth. If you're in debt and poverty, you will pass that down. Okay, just like wealth can be passed down, so can poverty. So while the richer are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and that's the thing. If you don't have any, and black people were told, and unfortunately we were told this. We're learning now. We're learning better now. Hopefully, it's not too late. But black people were told that wealth is not really important. Gaining assets to pass down is not really important. We should do things. We should invest our money in things that we enjoy, consumer goods, and instead of the importance of wealth and assets. And the dominant society isn't taught that. The dominant society, and not just the dominant society, Asian society, Hispanics, all of them are taught the importance of being able to pass certain things down. You have Arabs who got their damn 14-year-olds at the register in their gas stations. Arabs and Indians and Asians who work at the Chinese restaurant. They're in middle school. They're not even in high school yet, and they're in the restaurant at the register. Because and eventually, when they get old enough, their parents will pass that restaurant down to them. We have other races of people who pass things down. Now, unfortunately, we don't have that with black people. Not to say this is all black people's fault, because even when we do have the concept of, okay, I'm gonna start a business because I want to be able to pass something down to my kids, um you have a bunch of people sabotaging, even the dominant society sabotaging that business, like the turkey leg hut in Texas. Even when black people owned businesses, like back in the day, like we had a bunch of black Wall Streets that were destroyed and colonized and taken over. You had the Highway Act with convict leasing. You had all of, not convict leasing, I didn't mean to say that. What's that, eminent domain. All of
oh
those
yeah, where they
things that
took the
took,
properties to build the highway across that
yeah,
project.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You had these things that stripped the opportunity for black people to pass certain things down to their offspring, which they knew the importance of, which is why they did it to black people and black people alone. As other immigrant groups like the Homestead Act and even in today's time get to come over here, and they get to get resources and opportunities so they can create their own capital and practice capitalism and pass certain things down to their children, so they will have an easier time practicing capitalism than their parents did. Not too long ago, when Biden pulled out of Afghanistan, and a whole bunch of um, immigrant Arabs or Iranians or whoever they are, they came over here to the States. They were given free grants and a bunch of refugee set asides and things like that, so they can have an economic base, while black people are constantly getting stripped of our economic base. Kate,
Absolutely.
is there something you wanted to say? You had your
Yeah,
hand
I
up.
was just gonna say it's something that a lot of people don't. Well, a lot of people probably know about this, but it's not emphasized enough. Back when black men who fought in World War II and Korea and those types of wars, they came back home from those wars and they were not able to get those FHA mortgages like the white veterans at the time. And you talk about home ownership. That's one of the biggest creators of wealth. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those white men that got those FHA mortgages or get great financing, they were able to leverage those homes into small business loans, into buying multiple properties and things like that that were passed down to subsequent generations. And it's just like you know we just didn't have that opportunity, and it's an incalculable loss. You know, from then to the present.
You're absolutely right. We've had to work harder to get everything, and then the second we get it, the dominant society comes to take it away. And I've had this conversation for a long time, a very long time, about Black Wall Street specifically, and we were constantly getting told, oh well, or I was constantly getting told. I'm not going to say we, but because I'm speaking on my personal experience, but I was constantly getting told, okay, well, black people, if we had our Black Wall Street and they destroyed it. So if we build it up again, if we make another Black Wall Street, they'll destroy that Black Wall Street again. What's to stop them from destroying the Black Wall Street again? And my response is, if we look at bees, uh, so somebody had a comment. If we look at bees, the animal bees, right? If we look at them, if you destroy, now bees have beehives where they take the pollen into the beehives and they turn it into honey, and we all know how bees work. If you have a beehive that's in your house, in your backyard or something, and you destroy that beehive, bees are going to say, okay, well, we need to make another beehive. It's probably not smart to put another beehive right back in that location again. We need to set it up smarter. We need to think smarter about where our next beehive is going to be, but we will make another beehive. You're never going to see a bunch of just free bees like, well, we tried that beehive thing, so that didn't work. We're going to have to leave that alone. You have ants who have I mean, all animals do that. When their home gets destroyed, when a bird's nest gets destroyed, that bird is not going to be like, well, I guess I don't have a bird's nest anymore. That bird is going to pick up all the sticks again to build another bird's nest. When an anthill gets messed up, they will build another anthill and another society within that anthill. The thing is that it doesn't matter if it gets destroyed. If it's a concept in an agenda in the psyche of every black person, especially every foundational black person here, to it doesn't matter if my business gets destroyed. I know the importance of black business, so I'm going to participate in the black economy one way or another. I'm going to try to build a more effective Black Wall Street, because let's be honest, black businesses have changed. Well, business in general has changed a lot within the last 100 years. You have a lot of online businesses now too. You have a lot of different things. So
Yeah, that was going to actually be my next point.
find
I was going to
yeah,
say,
find a solution to rebuild in a better way, a more effective way, so they can't come here and destroy it like they did in the past. And if they
right.
do try, we need to be prepared to defend our businesses.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean that, and it's not just physically. You know, that's from having the right legal structures in place, the right tax structures. You know, that's why we need more people who are black in finance to protect these businesses and to get people access to funding. So because and then like you said, these days it's not about having. Most people think when they think start a business, they're thinking of a brick and mortar business, and like you said, you can start an e-commerce business even on something like, I hate to say it, Amazon, FBA. You can start a business with that. You can start small. You don't need to have a store downtown to make money. You can do everything virtually. You can have a Shopify. Those, to me, those are the new Black Wall Street, e-commerce.
Yeah, I know a lot of people. A lot of people. Most of the people I know, most of the black people I know who have their own businesses are working online. They're working online through Amazon, or they have their own products that they make, and they have their own websites, and they use their social media to promote their own websites and their own merchandise or services, and they do it like that. So you have many more opportunities to create business and expand your business. Now you still, let's not try to simplify the issue. You still have the fact that if you, even if you sell t-shirts, like you have, because I do, you have a logo or whatever. If you sell t-shirts, you're going to need to get the t-shirts, you're going to need to get the material to ship the t-shirts. Everything's going to cost you money. You're going to wind up spending money if you sell. And I know somebody, my auntie, even, she sells like desserts and things like that, or you know, cookies and cakes and all that. You need money to make the cookies. You need money to make the cakes. I know somebody who sells makeup. She sells makeup on, or like makeup brushes and lip gloss and all that stuff online. Um, she needs money to get that stuff, and then she needs money to prepare it and ship it and all that. So you will need, so we're not just saying, oh well, you can start an online business, as if that's a simple thing too, because that's not I'm not trying to say this as if black people need to stop being lazy, because all of those things have a racial element to make it harder. Now
Facts. Yeah, facts. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just certain businesses you can start. The thing that a lot of people don't know, that if you start a business, you can get access to funding. Without things like building your business credit, like using your
mhm,
DUNS, your what is escaping me, your DUNS number, and your getting your paydex scores and stuff like that. It's actually not that difficult of a process. I think more people should become educated on that, because if they are starting, like you said, someone that has a baking, I think you said a baking business, you can
yeah,
use that business credit to buy baking materials from like Sam's Club or Costco to operate that business, and pay it down, get more funding to expand your business.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
yeah. FBA
Peace.
all day you
Hey,
requested.
peace, my brothers. Hey, everything y'all saying, I just wanted to tell y'all is a fact. Is y'all on point? I'm gonna just say this one thing. I've been telling everybody this, even in my own family. Everything that y'all saying is a fact, and we need to bring the financial literacy back. But I think two is education as well, because I think what a lot of the times the dominant society, what they'll do is they'll try to make us feel guilty for wanting our land, wealth, and resources back that we deserve. They're very good at that, at putting us in a position where we start to feel bad about reclaiming what is rightfully ours. And the reason why I'm saying this, and I'm gonna get off and let y'all do y'all thing. I read this book called the Never Caught: The Untold Story of Una Judge. That was George Washington and Martha Washington's slave, and she escaped or whatever. Well, when she escaped, before she escaped, they started breaking down Martha Washington's like kind of financial stuff, and she had a lot of money. George Washington didn't. That's why he married her. Well, Martha Washington has 17,500 acres of land. That's all I'm gonna say. 17,500 acres of land. So anytime somebody say we shouldn't be wanting financial literacy, we shouldn't be wanting reparations, we shouldn't, be able to build a Black Wall Street, and we shouldn't be able to build those things. Yeah, they tore it up, but nobody never took away that 17,500 acres of land. Her kids are benefiting off of that. We didn't even get 40 acres and a mule. And she has 17,500 acres of land. She was the largest plantation owner in the antebellum period. And we can't even get 1 acre. If you price 1 acre of land across the United States of America, especially big cities like New York and Los Angeles, just imagine how much that costs and what it's worth. And we don't have any of that. We're not privy to any of that stuff because we've been boxed and locked out like Dr. Klein Anderson teaches. So everything y'all saying is a fact. And when people try to make us feel like we shouldn't want reparations or we shouldn't want to do better financially, just bring up that point. How does somebody accumulate 17,500 acres of land? I can tell you how. Off the backs of Black labor. Hey, man. Peace, y'all. I'm out.
Thank you. FBA all day. Thank you, brother. I mean, that's spoke truth to power right there.
Yeah, to put that what FBA just said into context. So I live in the DC area, right? And the owner of the Redskins, or they're the Commanders or whatever they're called now, Daniel Snyder, he just bought a property in Northern Virginia, and it's 16 acres of the property that once belonged to Martha Washington and George Washington, that 17,000 acres. So he paid for 16 acres, and he paid $50 million for this house. So think about $50 million for 16 of those acres. Imagine what the
Mm.
what the 17,000 acres would be worth. And you're
That's
talking
what I'm
about
trying
our
to
people.
say.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
thank you, my brother. Look, I'm glad you told me that. Because now I'm about to take that information that you just said, and I'm gonna tell my family that too. I'm like, if somebody has 17,500 acres of land, and you know they still have it, because who else is taking it from them? Because the dominant society, that's how they keep their wealth. It's in land, mortgages, money market accounts, just like Dr. Clyde Anderson teaches.
It's
So
frozen, exactly.
if you said somebody just bought 16 acres for $50 million, so
Yes,
just
sir.
imagine 17,000. Let's just think about us. I'm talking about us, and I want y'all to tell everybody y'all know 17,500 acres of land. So 16 acres was 50 million. Just think about that. 50 million. And we don't even have one price. I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada right now. I'm telling y'all, an acre of land is $1 million out here. And this is Las Vegas. That people don't even really live out here like that. So just imagine 17,500 acres of land. And we don't even have that. They don't even want to share that with us. They trying to box us out of that. That's why, when you see people and buying acres of land and all that, look at these big investor groups. Hardly any of them are hardly any black investors. They're all dominant society people. So that's why I always bring up that point, because I feel like what y'all saying is factual. It's all facts. And the dominant society has a very, very good tactic at making us feel bad about wanting financial freedom, stability, being our own business owners. They're very good at tactically making you feel like, well, just go get a job. Why you want to be a business owner? They're very good at that. But you know what I mean? And the only reason why I said it is because me being out here and being around them, a lot of dominant society people will tell you, like, look, man, just be a business owner. You don't want to be working at that job for 50 years. But some won't tell you that. But they'll make sure that their kids are not going to work no job for 50 years. You know what I mean? They're going to make sure that, because they're going to set it up for their kids. And I feel like a lot of the times with us, we don't know that knowledge, that these people done had thousands and thousands of acres of land. Like I knew from reading Dr. Clyde Anderson's books and stuff like that. But as a kid, as a teenager, I didn't know any of that. You know what I mean? So for me to know that now, I was like, this is crazy. 17,500 acres of land. And here it is. Everything is controlled by the dominant society. And then when you have owners like Robert Smith or Bob Johnson, they can't even do a little bit for us before they being brought up on charges. Look at what happened to Robert Smith. He paid everybody's student loans off. Then they brought him up on some charges. But we got to keep, you know what I mean? We got to keep coming though. We can't stop. And we can't, to me, I feel like we can't be depending on every other racial group to fight our battle. I don't know. Like I said, I can't speak for where y'all at, but I know in Vegas a lot, like a lot of the people that I talk to, we always want everybody else to join in our battle instead of just relying on each other. Like you said, the t-shirt business, all that. I'm going to get with y'all too, because I be trying to buy anything that's a black owner. I'll just be trying to recycle that money, because I feel like if we don't recycle it, nobody else is going to do it. You know what I mean? Like I pass by Chinatown out here in Las Vegas. It ain't nothing but Chinese people all day long. When you go on the west side of Las Vegas, the historical west side in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is a fact. You don't see no Chinese people over there patronizing the black businesses. You do not see them over there. So that's why I always feel like we got to know who we are, know our history, and know things like, I didn't know that they bought 16 acres for 50 million. That's crazy, but good looking on telling me that, man. All right, man, I'm gonna let y'all do. I didn't try to take up too much of y'all time, man. My bad.
No, we appreciate. I appreciate you.
You're good. I like people to add value to the conversation.
Nah, man, I'm just. It will blow y'all mind. Like if y'all can't. Like I be telling people all the time, because like the historical West Side, that was predominantly black. And I remember one time, like I used to work at a recreation center on the West Side, predominantly black, right? This is going to blow y'all mind. Now, we have a black councilman. He's now a Clark County commissioner, and he do a backpack giveaway. And this is the historic West Side. My mom used to stay over there. I worked at the rec center over there. Now they do a backpack giveaway. I worked there for years. All it was just black kids, a little bit of white, but mostly black kids. Now, when it was time for a backpack giveaway, Do y'all know how many Latinos was over there getting them free backpacks? Do y'all know? It would have blown y'all. Look, this how bad it was. There were white police officers lying to the Latino kids, telling them ain't no more backpacks because they straight told me this is for black people. This is not for them. They have enough resources that they get from the government to supply their people. A white cop told me that. A white cop told me that. And I was so young and dumbfounded, I didn't understand. This was like 17 years ago. So it didn't resonate. I was like, why are you turning them away? And she was like, this is not for them. This is for African American people. This is not for them. We do stuff for them in their community. They shouldn't be coming over here trying to get free stuff. And it didn't dawn on me until like I kind of like thought about it. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. These police were literally turning these Latinos away, lying to them, telling them ain't no more backpacks. But then when the black kids would come, they like, yeah, it's plenty of backpacks. And then she was even breaking it down like, no, you don't see black people in their neighborhood over there. If they go in their neighborhood, they calling the police on black people. And it blew my mind because I was like, man, she's right. And then I started just kind of going over there. And a lot of times my mom would always tell me, when you go over there in them Latino communities, they're not going to really deal with no black folk. They're not going to deal with you, but they'll come over here when it's something free. So I feel like we got to take pride in ourselves. And we have to stop inviting everybody to the cookout and expecting everybody to fight our battles because they only worried about them. I'm telling you, I see it out here. I see it. It will blow your mind how they gentrifying the black community because they don't want us over there. So it's really important. I feel that people listen to what y'all saying. More people should be listening to y'all because y'all speaking some real game right now. Because this is important. I be telling people like this is not for play. This is the matrix. It's real social game rules. Your mind makes it real. The body cannot live without the mind type stuff. And I think people, they just assume, just from my perspective, like, oh, eventually we'll come together. No, the time is now. Right. You know what I mean? You can't be like.
Another underrated part of this is that we're talking about the idea of black capitalism, and we're talking about, America is in decline. The capitalism era, the post World War II economy is dying. So we're gonna have to think about how to be black capitalists in a declining America.
Yes,
because it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, it is. Look, it's already, like I said, I can speak for LA and I can speak from Vegas because I'm originally from LA. LA, if you want to buy a house, I'm talking about a shack. I'm talking about a 60-year-old home with no upgrades. You better have $550,000. And we're not even talking about in LA. We're talking about the outskirts of LA. Now, if you want to go into LA, like the Crenshaw district or, anywhere over there where Nipsey Hussle had his shop, no, you paying $800,000. You paying almost $1 million for a home. Now, let's just break it down. We are black folk. We're melanated. Most of us foundational black Americans. How many FBA family members and people y'all know got $1 million?
Yeah, I
know a lot. I work in real estate, and so I know. I'm not trying to brag, but I know a lot of people that have $1 million. But
I'm talking about your.
Yeah, the average person doesn't.
Yeah, I'm talking about the average.
Yeah, the average person, hell no.
Look, you do, which is good. And you know why I'm glad you know that? Let me tell you why I'm glad you know that. Because you get the best perspective. Because you know the average person don't. And you're around people that are not the average. They are the exception to the rule. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when you're dealing with people that are exception to the rule, but then you're dealing with people that are the average, like, hey, this scale's a little off balanced. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I sell properties, right? And most of the people that I sell these properties to are not black. But most of them are they're either white or they're Asian, Middle Eastern, Indian. I would say 90% of the people that I sell properties to are not black, and they have
Exactly.
millions of dollars. They send. I know how much money they have because they send me. They send me proof of funds, bank statements,
Yes.
and I can see
Yes.
what's in their account. I got one earlier. Indian guy has $7 million in his bank account, and that's nothing.
Wow.
Oh man. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you, it don't surprise me. It does not surprise me because that is done by design, and they know. I feel like they know the dominant society is, as Neely Fuller Jr. said, they're the masters of confusion. They're the masters of confusion. So they know we're so disorganized as a group because we don't have a code established that we're more worried about what a person has on than what type of value can this person bring to me mentally, educationally. We're more worried about what kind of clothes you have on or what kind of car you have than what type of value are you bringing to the community. What type of education are you gaming up people that are younger than you, teaching them? We're not really worried about that. You know why I know? Because growing up in LA, it was all about what kind of clothes you had. I want to look like $1 million, but have a quarter in my pocket. And I didn't start realizing that until I got to Vegas and I started being around people that had real money. Man, I used to work with the governor. He was the governor like 20 years ago. I used to work with his grandson. I didn't even know his grandfather was the governor. I didn't really know any of this until this dude invited me and one of my homeboys from the West. We all worked together. He invited us to his crib. Right? He just was like, hey, man, we going to go out. We was hanging out at one of the casinos. I don't know if you've been to Vegas. That's in Summerlin. It's like in a nice part of town. So we just go up there and go bowling. Well, yet again, we go to his house. Me and my homeboy like, man, where's we going? And I'm like, man, we going past where we normally go. It's a big old guarded gate, armed guards. We like, dude, what is this dude? We know this dude lived here. Go in this dude's house. He got pictures with George W. Bush, George H. Bush. He got all these pictures with all these people. And we like, dude, who are you related to? And he was like, oh, I forgot to tell y'all, man, my grandfather's the governor. And this dude lived in like an $8 million home. But you know what? You would never tell because this dude wore white t-shirts, board shorts, and Vans. You would never know he had money at all. All of his friends was the same. They all had money, and they didn't care. They would. One of his friends made this comment to me. He said, "Yeah, my dad taught us as kids to portray the image that we don't have nothing, because then we don't have to worry about what did he say? You don't have to worry about attracting the wrong attention." That's what he said, and I said, that's good to know." And I think we're not educated that way. We're educated, look like $1 million, but don't have a quarter in our pocket. You know what I'm saying? Like,
because a lot of us black people were new money. New money is loud. Old money is quiet.
Yep. And I wish I was raised more that way, because I didn't start getting these concepts until I got older, and I was like, oh, that does make sense. Because I'm telling you, I was around like owners of casinos, on the Fertitta kids for the station casinos. A lot of these owners, man, you won't even know that these kids got these, they got real money, because they're not really socialized that way, versus a lot of us. I can't speak for all of us. I can just speak for me, my family, and cousins. We got to have a Jordan zone. We got to have the Versace or the Gucci. We got to show you our Gucci belt. You know what I mean? And I remember one time, my mom was like, yeah, you can have a Gucci belt. And when I was going to the community college out here in Vegas, she was like, yeah, but that guy is at the bus stop with a Gucci belt on. And it kind of resonated with me, like, oh, yeah, mom's is right. She was like, that doesn't make sense. So,
Now,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, you guys are spitting good. One point that I want to touch on that you guys said before it loses me is the connections that these people have. That cannot be understated. The connections that these people have. These people, and one of the issues that black people struggle with is we don't have the same connections. You know how when we would grow up in public school, and then that white person who would never get in trouble because his dad knows the principal, they hang out and they play golf or whatever.
Facts.
Or like you were saying, that one dude, my dad knows the governor, or my dad is the governor, or they have if not direct connections in their family has connections. They're only 1 degree away. They can call their uncle. There was a Hispanic person I used to work with who was pulled over, didn't have a license at all, speeding in the car with weed in the car, didn't have a license, and he was pulled over and was about to get arrested and his car towed until the police officer, who was also Hispanic, what he said he was a white Hispanic. What he said, he saw a sticker in his car that his some I don't know, but his uncle was a cop. So he called his uncle was a sheriff. My fault. So he called his uncle, and then after the officer talked to his uncle, he let him go. Black people don't have those connections, and the unfortunate thing is black people are not taught to network and to kind of build those connections with other people too. Black people are not taught those things. I remember when I was younger, and I would see a lot of people talking about, oh man, a lot of people I know personally, man, credit cards, man, be careful with a credit card. You should avoid getting. I was taught to really avoid getting a credit card or dealing with credit because a lot of people go into debt with credit, and I didn't understand the importance of getting a credit card and starting to build that up and starting to get your credit score to a good way, and then a great credit score. I didn't understand that until later on in life. I was always taught, and I would see my non-black counterparts, they would be having credit cards at like 18 years old, 17 years old. And I was thinking to myself, what is a 17-year-old who's barely getting out of high school doing with a credit card? Because their parents and their family was stressed to them, I'm going to get the credit card. I'm pretty much going to pay the credit card off, but it's going to be in your name. So that way, when you take over this credit card, you'll have at least an average credit score or an above average credit score. We have too many black people who are like, okay, well, I'm 27 years old. I'm at 30 years old right now. Let me start to get my credit together. When you got 18-year-olds who got a damn near 800 credit score. So we're
You're
behind.
right.
We're behind the starting line
Right,
when
and
it
that's
comes to
how.
them.
Yeah, and having those credit scores when you're 25 is the difference between you getting the business loan. It's not just an idea. It's not a fantasy. You just go to, you get an SBA loan, or there's private funding that you can get $250,000 if you have an 800 credit score. So instead of all you need to do is put together a business plan and you can start that business. You don't have to go fix your credit and take 2 or 3 years to do that and then start the business. That's a huge advantage.
And it
Yeah,
also
yeah.
helps you start the business too, because you don't necessarily have to invest all your money. Black people pretty much go bankrupt starting a business. They use all of their own capital in the bank to start whatever
Exactly.
business, and then when that business doesn't succeed, they wind up being broke.
Right. You
They start
drained
their
your whole
business cash poor.
401k on that business.
Yeah, no, no. You know what? Y'all, not even y'all right. I remember Byron Allen was talking about that. He was kind of like mentioning that, like when he bought the stage, because everybody was like, "Yeah, Byron Allen balling." He was like, "That wasn't my money." He was like, "I didn't use that money to buy those TV stations or whatever." And he was kind of breaking it down, like, I was using other people's money. So basically, y'all right. A lot of people do. I thought about that. Like, okay, maybe I should just use 401k or whatever. But then I started hearing other, FBA, and not just FBA, just other people like, hey man, there's other avenues for you to start businesses where you're not tapping into all your savings or, money market account or whatever you have and draining that, and then the business go belly up. There's other resources and other avenues. I just think we're not abreast of that information. We're bereft of that knowledge. We don't know that. So, if we just kind of go, you know why? Just my personal opinion. Black folk look at each other as competition and not as teammates. You know what I mean? And I
Mm.
feel like we're,
Getting heavy in
I
here.
remember one
It's
time,
getting heavy.
look, we do. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. I can only speak on my experience. Dr. Claude Anderson, he teaches that it's the competition of resources. That's what racism is. It's the competition of resources. If you listen to Neely Fuller Jr. or Dr. Francoise Welsing, she talks about how they dominate the 9 areas of people activities. We already know that. Economics, entertainment, we already know all that. Okay, so if we know that, and our ancestors and our elders have taught us that. I don't understand why we still look at each other as competition. Like when you see somebody and they got something nice, we can't even accept a compliment. Because in our mind, we like, okay, is he finna rob me or what is he about to do? Or is he, you know what I mean? We don't even know how to accept compliments from each other. Like if somebody's got a nice car, you're like, hey man, that's a nice whip you got there. In your mind, you like, oh, okay, because we are programmed to see each other as competition. And it's crazy because every other racial group, it's dysfunction in every racial group. But you know what? Their commonality is they're the same racial group and they in it together. That's what the commonality is. Like if you come out here in Las Vegas, Nevada, the majority of the people building these homes are Latinos, or what they want to call them now Hispanics. But that's who building the homes now. You don't see a lot of black folk building homes. You don't see a lot of black plumbers, electricians, none of that stuff. You see them doing it all. You know why I know that? Because I'm around a lot of them and I see that stuff. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. And it just shows we don't want to ask each other for help. You know what I mean? We don't want to sit down like, hey man, like how did you do it? Just like my brother said, hey man, I know a lot of people that's millionaires because I deal in real estate. Me and this brother, we need to chop it down so the information he have, I can plug my people up with it too. Because, it's a lot of people that are not educated on property and what type of wealth transference it is when you have property. That's why I always bring up Martha Washington. If she had 17,000 acres of land, think about it. Your kids is just living. They still living off of it. If somebody bought 16 acres for 50 meal tickets, then just imagine what they got left. Because I know they didn't give it to no black folk.
Yeah,
So just imagine that.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, the good thing about real estate is that you don't have to have money to make money. That's something that's very understated. I bring people deals off market. I structure the deal. I negotiate the deal, and then I bring it to them and collect a fee. Like today, I made 30,000 off of doing that. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just telling you that.
Yeah, my brother, we need to talk.
Yeah, we definitely
And I'm
do.
making 20,000 this Friday. So I'm just trying to tell people that it's called wholesaling. You can look it up on YouTube. There's a shitload of videos on it.
Mhm.
But you can
Okay.
do this business and you can do 10 deals a year and make 500,000. And I'm also a real estate agent. So
Yeah.
that's less
I
money.
need to.
So I'm not as big of a fan of it, and it's more paperwork. But you can do this types of stuff and make money and have money, liquidity to do other things. So what I do is I do this business and I use it to buy stocks and buy cryptocurrencies that passive
Yes.
income to build wealth long term. So that's the play right now for me.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question for the
Sure.
people who are
Yes.
probably going to watch this during the playback? How did you get how did you get to the point, if you could just like give us an abridged version of, if somebody wanted to be like, hey man, I want to get into what Brother Tate is into, how would they get into that?
Yeah, I mean, when I got into this in 2016, 2017, it started off with a friend that went to a real estate seminar. He went to one of those hotel things where you listen to a presentation and they try to sell you a course, and then you get interested and you get excited, and then they tell you how much the course is, and they're like, well, it's going to be 15, 20,000 to do it. And then you get discouraged and you go home and you hit YouTube and start looking up real estate investing, real estate wholesaling, fixing and flipping houses, buying and holding properties. You look up all that stuff. And then you just I looked around to see if there was anything else that I could afford at the time to do this business. And obviously everyone else is 30,000. And then I finally came along a local real estate club where it only cost $2,500. So I got really excited. I paid the $2,500, and it was in $250 increments for a number of months. And I went to the club, and then I started talking about real estate all the time on social media. I went into some local real estate groups in the DC area, and I started posting a lot of stuff. And then I met some local developers, and they put together a marketing campaign of cold calling property owners. And I did my first deal off of cold calling. I wouldn't recommend people do it now because it's very saturated. But at the time, this is it was a fruitful way to get deals. And so I did one deal, and then I did my first deal after almost 2 years of trying to get a deal. And then I did my second deal a month later. Then I did my third deal the next, I think it was a week or two after that. So that's kind of how I did it. And then with these deals, like let's say I talk to a homeowner and I negotiate, like the deal I did today, for instance. I got the property under contract for 185,000. Okay, as me with me being the buyer, I made the property offer in the name of a Shell LLC. So property address LLC and such who is selling the property is under contract with me. I then take the property and I start marketing it. So I went and marketed the property at 185 for 235. So that was obviously, what is that, a $50,000 spread? I didn't find anybody that would pay that much, but I did find some Serbian guys that paid 218,000. So I made 33,000 today. So
Mm.
that's kind of the business, and it cost me no money to do that. It's all about building relationships.
You need to teach a class, my brother. Like for real. The way you just broke that down, like, look, you need to look. You need to teach a class. Like for real, you need to teach a real class because I've heard of that before, but a lot of times when I'm be listening, I'm not really understanding, and
Yeah.
everybody
Just
learns different.
yeah. I mean, I
But
could definitely make some YouTubes or something. Maybe over the weekend or something, just to share with you guys.
Hey, I
I'm
was
be
about to
sending
say
it to
I have a
everybody.
YouTube channel. If you want to, I would be more than welcome to have you on as a guest, and we can talk about this because I feel
Yeah,
like
That's
I
it's
a
don't
very
bet.
mind doing a
important for
space
people to
on
know.
this. It's not an issue.
Hey, let me know when y'all gonna do it because I be trying to like I said, I be telling like my siblings, I be telling like anybody I know, like one of my homeboys who work at, the job I work at, I call it the corporate plantation. And he bought his crib, his mom bought a crib. It's a socialization too. Like his grandfather owned a home, then he instilled it in his mom's, and then she bought a home, and then she instilled it in him. So then he bought a home. But a lot of people don't have that. Some people don't have that knowledge, and you got it, man. You got to
Yeah,
be on
yeah,
YouTube with that, bro. Like
yeah. I mean,
for real, because it's
it's a
very
lot of
important.
people that are doing it. So I'm not special in that regard. I think it's just you have to actually go out and do shit. You can't just fantasize about it and not do anything. Because I know I got a buddy that learned about all this shit at the same time I learned about it in 2017, and he hasn't made a fucking cent, but he has all the knowledge, but never executed. So I've made $500,000, between now and 2017 or whenever it was doing this shit. So, um,
Mm.
an
That's good.
important thing is building relationships. Like I know, in this space, everyone is kind of a black, just for lack of a better word, a pro black mindset. You know, but I think when you're talking about business, you have to have a pro green mindset
That's facts.
because
Facts.
Okay.
you have to understand most of the people that you're doing business with in this business are not black and they don't have,
Facts.
you know,
Okay. Can I ask another question too? Because you're
sure.
giving very good information.
Sure.
When people like try to get into that field, what are some common mistakes that you feel like people make, or misconceptions that people
Yeah,
have?
mistakes are you have to market for deals. Like you have to go out, you have to find properties, distressed real estate, and you have to negotiate. So people are looking for the wrong properties. They're not getting good leads. They're not getting good phone numbers to call the owners. They're not getting, they're just not doing good marketing essentially. And then another thing is when they find a person, putting the property under contract for too high of a number so that you can't sell it. So let's say no one wanted to buy my deal at two whatever, and I would be stuck with the property. So I would either have to close on it myself or lose my deposit because I put down a $2,500 deposit because I had to close by the end of by next Monday. I think next Monday is the 28th, and that's a common mistake. Another common mistake is selling the property for too little money. So when I was shopping this deal, I had people that I was at 185, like I said. So I had people that came out to see the property 2 weeks ago, and they were lowballing me. They were telling me 180, so that's less than I have it for. They were telling me 185, where I would have made nothing, and it was people telling me 190, where I would have only made $5,000. And to me, $5,000 is it's disappointing. I mean, it's some money, but it's really no money. So I continued to market the deal, and I ended up making what I got. What I wanted to make.
Okay. Now, did the people when you put it out there, did you like reach out to try to sell it, or did you like put it on like did you advertise it and then have people
Oh
you
yeah, yeah. I
sit and
mean,
wait and call them?
basically what I did is I went on Facebook because there's local Facebook groups for all this real estate stuff. And I pitched the deal on there. I said, "Is anybody interested in this property?" And I put the purchase price, I put the estimated renovation costs, and I put the after repair value. So the after repair value is what you can obviously sell the house for after it's fixed up. And that's how I find people. And then I just have from years of doing deals, I have people on my phone. Like I said, I know a lot of millionaires. So I can just text them or call them and say, I got this deal, so and so, you know, whoopty whoop. It's at this address. This is what I think you can sell it for. Here's the pictures, here's the video, here's the lockbox combo if you want to go see it, yada, yada, yada. And then, I tell them my terms. I say, you know, I need you to put down a $10,000 non-refundable deposit. I need you to close by this date. You know, the files at the title company ready to close. Go out and see it. Give me an offer. They do the thing, and we close. And
Okay.
if they back out of the deal, I keep their $10,000 and go find another buyer. So I make even more money if that happens.
Mm. Okay, with the non-refundable deposit, that's you definitely could make some money on that. Let me ask you a question because there's a lot of TV shows where or I guess people buy houses that have been damaged or abandoned and things like that, and then they fix them up and they sell them for more money. Do you feel like it is better? Which one is better, I would say, to buy a house for a certain price, and then fix the house up to, get it appraised, get all the damages and stuff like that fixed, I guess replace the cabinets or whatever needs to be replaced, and then sell it at that point, or to get the house, um, get the appraisal for the repairs and then sell it at a cheaper price. Which one do you
Yeah,
feel like
that's
would
what
be
I
more
do. I'm
effective?
doing number two essentially. I'm doing number two. I'm getting the property or it may be fucked up and have water in it and mold and termites or whatever. I negotiate the price down on the front side with the homeowner, and then I take it to the investor to do the project, and I collect my fee in the middle. I'd rather do it my way because you're talking about 30 days versus 6 months. Because if you buy a property and you have to fix it up, there's no telling what you could find behind the walls, and that could cause a project that you
Mm.
think is going to be 3 months or 6 months to be a year, and then you have your capital tied up for a year. You're paying you're paying carrying costs if you're not paying cash. If you're using hard money or some type of financing, you're paying that financing. That's eating into your profit every month. And if you have any type of change order, which is what they call it in construction, when something that's not in the original plan needs to be done, that could add time. Every day you're paying daily interest on the property, and I'd rather not do that. I'd rather get my 30,000 now, get out, let them do the work, and I wish them well. But gentlemen, it
Oh,
was
okay.
great talking to you. So let's stay in touch, and if you want to set that space up, I'm more than willing to do it, sir.
Okay, well, definitely, definitely. I wasn't really planning on being on this space that long. A couple days ago, I was on the space for close to 5 hours. I wasn't planning on being in this space that long, so I guess I will wrap things up. If anybody has any final words, you can feel free to say so. I will definitely, definitely be reaching out to you so we can get that space out because you have some very important information And this subject in general is very important for people
Yeah,
to listen
because I
to.
see we talk. There's a bunch of spaces with the spore wars and all this other stuff. I think this is a waste of time. That's not going to get us you know anywhere good other than back in another space with people going back and forth, African versus
Hmm.
FBA and this and that. So I'm not I sat in those spaces for entertainment, but I found this space to be helpful because we're talking about constructive shit. But with that note, I just had a new baby. I got to jump. But
Oh,
good talk with
congratulations!
me. Thank you. All right, y'all have a good evening.
All right, thank you, brother.
No
We'll
problem.
be in touch.
All right, fantastic.
Um, well, everybody who's listening to the recording, everybody who's here now, I want to give you guys a big thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all of the speakers who got in and shared their opinions. I feel like this space was very productive. I feel like this space about black capitalism being good. I feel like this space needs a part two, actually. So if you guys want to follow me on my Twitter, and like I said, you can check me out on YouTube at Afro Elite as well. You can do that, and we can have more Twitter spaces about Black capitalism because we do need to have productive conversations about Black people gaining power, wealth, and influence, and how Black people can participate in capital, how Black people can gain capital and participate in capitalism. So these are very productive spaces, which I love to see. Um, I'm gonna try to record this space specifically and put it on my YouTube channel. Um, so be looking forward to that if I can get that done. But I'm out of here. Thank you for thank you for participating. To everybody who participated, thank you for listening. To everyone who's listened, you all have a good rest of your day.